One of my dogs, Zoe, suddenly started scratching. And I mean, not just the occasional itch, it was constant. In a minute, I'm going to show you something that made this super clear and honestly changed how I looked at it completely. Like enough that you stop what you're doing and really pay attention. At first, I didn't think too much of Zoe scratching because, dogs scratch sometimes. It's easy to brush it off. You kind of tell yourself it's probably nothing. Maybe she needs a brushing. And then it kept going. And not just once or twice, it was persistent enough that I looked closely and noticed something else. She had these tiny blisters starting inside her ear. And that's when I said, okay, something's not right here. And you can feel that moment, right? Where it shifts from maybe to I really need to pay attention. Now, if you've ever dealt with something like this with your dog or even yourself, maybe your kids, you already know what happens next. This is where it gets confusing fast because you start thinking, okay, what could this be? Maybe it's allergies. Is it the food? Maybe it's something seasonal, the environment, something in the air, mites. And if you've ever gone down that path, you know how fast it opens up to a million options because now you're not looking at one possibility, you're looking at 10, 15, 20. And honestly, they all sound like they could be right. And this is usually the point where you start second guessing yourself. Like, am I missing something obvious? Should I already know this? Am I overthinking it or not thinking enough? And if you've ever been there, you know it doesn't feel clear. It feels super noisy because every option sounds reasonable. And when everything sounds reasonable, nothing feels certain. And what I see most people do right here is try to stop the symptom immediately, right? You reach for an anti-itch spray, a medicated shampoo, maybe an allergy remedy, or you start switching foods, adding supplements, just trying different things, sometimes many things all at once, because you're trying to make the scratching stop. And I get it. And it makes sense because when something like that is happening, you just want relief. You just want it to go away. But when you just try to stop the symptom, you can miss what's actually causing it. And sometimes it looks like it's gone, but it's just being pushed down and it shows up somewhere else later. But here's the part most people don't realize. When you start changing multiple things, you lose the ability to actually see what's happening. Now you're guessing inside of guessing. But I remember standing there thinking, I'm not going to guess here. I've seen this far too many times. When you go down a path and end up further away from the answer. So instead of reacting, I paused and I thought, what if I just check first? Now, for those of you who don't know me, I've spent decades working in wellness, helping people learn how to observe how the body responds to different things, how to verify first what's actually happening. And one thing I've seen over and over again is that healthy does not always mean compatible. And that applies to people and our pets. And this is where we get tripped up because you've been taught to think in terms of good or bad, healthy or not healthy. But the body doesn't actually work like that. Something can be a great product, high quality, well sourced, great reviews, and still not be what that body needs right now. Not forever, just not right now. And that's a very different way of looking at things because now it's not about finding the best thing, it's about finding the best fit. And I've seen this with clients too. Same supplement, one person feels amazing, another person feels worse. Same food, one thrives, one reacts. And this is where we get confused because they're both doing the right things, but the body doesn't work off of trends. It works off of what it needs right now. If this kind of thing is interesting you, learning how to actually see how the body responds, whether that's for yourself or your pets, make sure that you're subscribed because this is exactly what we explore here. Because this situation is incredibly common. A symptom shows up: scratching, digestive issues, skin reactions, low energy, whatever it is. The first question is almost always, what should I give? What do I take? But that question is actually the trap because it skips something really important. Instead of asking, what should I give? What should I take? The better question is, what is this body actually responding to right now? Because the body is never just doing nothing. It's always responding in some way to food, to products, to the environment, even if you don't notice it right away. And having a body-led way to check that before you start changing things, that's where this becomes really powerful, super useful, because instead of guessing, you can actually see how the body responds first. And once you can see that, everything starts to make a lot more sense. Now, one thing I like to clarify because this part matters. Simple health test is the method, meaning it's the way you check what the body is responding to. The tool you use with that can vary. Some people use muscle testing, some use sway testing or pendulums. In this case, I'm going to use a simple leg strength check. But the tool, that's not the important part. It's how you're checking and what you're looking for, because this is where you can really get tripped up, focusing on the tool instead of what the body is showing you. And then it feels inconsistent when really it's just not being checked clearly. So I have two treats here, both of them completely fine, high quality, amazing ingredients, fantastic reviews, nothing that would raise a red flag. And honestly, if I hadn't checked, I could have assumed both were perfectly fine for my dog. And honestly, if I hadn't checked, I could have assumed both were perfectly fine for Zoe. And this is where it gets really interesting. And I'll be honest, this is the part where most people either get really curious or really skeptical because it looks so simple, almost too simple. And when something looks that simple, it can easily be dismissed. But this is also the part where once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I want you to watch this because this is the part that most people miss. I'm going to show you what this actually looked like because I recorded myself when I tested Zoe. All right, I'm going to use my leg as the testing tool. I've got both treats. I'm going to take the first one. I'm going to hold it to Zoe's cheek and I'm going to push on my leg. That was strong. So that typically indicates this is an okay option for her. I'm going to take the second treat, hold it to her cheek, and repeat the process. That time it was a very weak response, which would indicate this treat is not okay for this dog at this time. Sorry, Zoe. Now let me show you that again because this is so subtle. I recorded myself testing my other dog, CJ. I'm going to take the first treat against the cheek of my dog. That was a really strong reaction. But now I'm going to take the second treat and I'm going to repeat the process. This treat is not a good fit for this dog right now. Isn't that wild? Same treat, same idea, completely different responses between the treats, between the dogs. So you see, for Zoe, her scratching issue, her ear bumps were a result of one of her treats. Her body didn't want that one anymore. And honestly, without checking, I probably would have gone down a completely different path. I might have thought, okay, maybe it's her main food or the environment, probably allergies, and start trying different things. But for Zoe, it was one specific treat that just wasn't working with her body at that time. And once we removed it, the scratching settled within a day and stopped. And this is the part that really matters. It wasn't the treat, it was the process. Because when we guess, You tend to change a lot of things at once. And when everything changes, we lose clarity. And this is actually why you end up stuck for so long, frustrated and overwhelmed. It's not because nothing's working, it's because too many things are being tried at one time. So even when something helps, it gets buried inside everything else that changed. So there's no clear signal, just noise. And when there's no signal, you go back to guessing again. You don't actually know what worked. And this is why so many people feel like I've tried everything because you have, just without a way to verify first. Now imagine this. Instead of trying 5 things, you check first. Instead of guessing, you verify. Instead of hoping something might work, you see how the body responds before you commit. It creates more predictable outcomes, and that changes everything. Now, if you work with animals, if you're a trainer, a groomer, a pet wellness professional, this becomes really valuable because you're constantly helping people decide what to try next. And right now, most of that is based on experience or trends or what's worked in the past. But what if you could actually check? What if you could say, let's see what your dog or your pet responds to first? That shifts your role completely from guessing to guiding. And when you can do that, you're not just recommending things anymore. You're helping people make decisions they can actually trust. And that builds real confidence for you and for them. And even if you're not a practitioner, this still matters because at some point, you are the one making the decisions. You're the one choosing the food, the product, the next step. So having a way to check before you commit to something, that's powerful because it puts you back in the driver's seat. We don't lack solutions today. We lack a way to verify which one to use first. Compatibility matters. And this is the part that really changes things. Not knowing more, not trying more, just checking first. And if you'd like to learn the first step of the simple health test method, the Am I Testable check, that helps confirm reliable body feedback before you try testing anything. So you can trust your testing tool. Before you try anything else, you need to see that first step. I put together a short training that walks you through it step by step. You'll find that link in the description below. Now, I'd actually be curious. Have you ever had a situation like this where something seemed fine, but turned out not to be a good fit? Or where you've tried multiple things and didn't really know what worked? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one.